Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fishing for a Reason podcast. I am Jamie Propst, your host today, and I'm excited about today's topic. So just a little bit of background about Anglers Unlimited, who we are, what we're about. We really stand for getting curious, not just curious about fishing, curious about life, curious about nature, curious about all the different things in the world that could essentially make us not only better fishermen, but better humans. So I wanted to highlight that specifically because the internet is mean. And that's been really an interesting learning curve. So we are now starting to get some traction with you guys finding us, which has been really great, connecting with some really amazing people from all over the West Coast, like all over, like down to South America, all the way to Alaska. We've gotten a ton of really great messages, and just learning about you guys, where you fish, your experience has been an absolute joy. So keep sending the messages because it's so much fun for us to connect and learn more about you as a fisherman, your fishery, answer your questions. We create content based on some of the questions we get. So again, if you have any content ideas, if you have a topic you're curious about, if you have feedback, we want it. So send it to support@anglersunlimited.co. And before we dive in, we really are a company born out of curiosity. Like I'm a constant learner. I love to learn. I love to grow. I love to develop as a person, both personally and professionally, as well as with my hobbies like fishing. So the conversation we're going to have today specifically is around smoking salmon. Now, before you say, oh, no, thank you, I can Google that. Hear me out because I'm going to go a little bit deeper on smoking salmon than you may expect. Because yes, you can type in ChatGPT or Google a recipe to smoke salmon. Great. But what does it actually do to the fish? How does that brine actually create a product that not only will stay fresh for a very long time, but is super delicious even after a year in the freezer? And it's something you can take backpacking because it's not going to spoil and go rancid. So there's certain things like scientifically that are happening to the fish, and that's the kind of crap that I'm interested in learning more about. So if you're like me and you're kind of a nerd about all the things, this might be worth your time. The other thing that I find interesting is it is a pink run here in Washington, and it's a record pink run. If you have been out on the water at all, you're going to see those things jumping everywhere. I caught my first pink this season last weekend during the Resurrection Derby, actually on camera, and we were trying to record a podcast from the boat. For those of you that did tune into that episode, I believe it was episode number 29. Yeah, it was a real-time experiment. So that's another thing. If you're tuning into these shows and you're like, hey, I want to see more boat action or I want to see more clips, we're trying to make this a little bit more interesting than just a Jamie talking head thing to watch because, you know, who wants to stare at somebody's face for 20, 30 minutes? So we're working towards developing a plan to get you guys some more interesting content, and that means fishing out on the boat, which is harder than it sounds to look at a camera, fish, watch the other boats around you, and say something coherent. So that's what we're going to do over time. But again, we appreciate your feedback. What we're going to talk about today is smoking salmon. The first thing I wanted to know is it's pink season. Pinks are everywhere. They're so easy to catch. You just kind of can't keep them off the hook. Why is it that we don't want them as much as we want a coho or a king? Like, what about pinks is less desirable? And we all know from an actual palatability standpoint, they just can taste a little less delicious. Their meat can be kind of mushy. They're super slimy when you pull them out of the water. If I'm going to fillet something up, I want that bright, beautiful fillet of a king or a coho, not that kind of pale pink meh of a pink salmon. But if you go to the store, you'll see canned pinks primarily. But they're everywhere. They're super abundant, and they're actually also a stock that is completely sustainable. We have not needed to raise them in hatchery. They crush just on their own. And I think that's super interesting to talk about. So this podcast is going to be first talking about the difference between the species and why we all enjoy smoking maybe those pink salmon more than grilling them. And if you have mastered cooking pink salmon on the grill or in the oven to the point where I would prefer it over a Chinook, please share the recipe because that is yet to be my experience. I've had one person in my entire life tell me he prefers pink salmon to any other species. I actually met him on the plane last week, and he's like, "Oh, pinks are my favorite." I'm like, said no one ever. But I absolutely loved that he was loud and proud about it. And it made me really curious about what his experience eating pinks more than any other species that made him enjoy it more. So with that, here is the actual scientific reason. Let me pull up my notes here really quick. The different salmon species, they actually smoke and cook differently because of their fat content and oil content in the meat. So as an example, Chinook salmon are considered the fattiest of the salmon species, which makes sense. They are out in the ocean the longest, from that 3 to 5 years out in the ocean, gorging on bait, getting a lot of fat and muscle mass compared to the other 5 species. And because of that, they have more fat and oil content in their meat, which makes them have the richest flavor and therefore the most highly desired flavor. NOAA Fisheries describes Chinook as having a pronounced buttery, rich taste and that oily, meaty texture. And if you've ever caught a Chinook and just ate it that day, like fresh caught, bring it home, throw it on the barbecue or in the oven, there's just nothing like it. And it kind of ruins you because if you go to the store and you bought fresh, wild caught Pacific salmon, it's still frozen. And there really is nothing better than having that fresh caught fish. It tastes different. And if you know, you know. So they consider these guys to have 10 to 12% fat and be the richest in flavor. Coho salmon, on the other hand, they're more intermediate. They're a little bit smaller than our kings, and they're going to have 6 to 7% fat. They're considered a leaner fish, and they taste a lot more mild. They're a blast to catch, and their fillets are bright red and beautiful and super delicious to eat. I would say for me, I don't really see a difference between kings and coho. I like both equally the same, and I'm happy to have one of those fillets for dinner equally the same, whether it's fresh or frozen. Pink salmon, on the other hand, or also known as humpies, have a fat content of 3 to 4%. So a significantly lower amount of fat content in their meat. And they're quick. They go out for 2 years and they come back. So it's a very quick turnaround for these guys. They don't spend as much time out there. Their fillets are a little paler in color. And actually, I'm going to cut to some video when you see, I'll go through my whole smoking process, kind of in an accelerated process as I'm speaking about it. And you'll notice on the fillets very distinctly which ones are the pink salmon without me telling you, and which ones are the Chinook. I caught a pink and I caught a Chinook on the same day and decided to grill up one of the fillets of the Chinook, but then also smoke it so you could see the difference between the two. But it definitely has this more milder and delicate flesh, but also the pink tends to be almost a mushier consistency than that beautiful king fillet. They're all good, don't get me wrong. And I really enjoy having some smoked salmon on hand, but if I'm going to catch a pink, it's going in the smoker, most likely. And that's just a personal preference. But I'd love to know from you guys if you have any tips or things that you do with your pink salmon that you think make them taste absolutely delicious and amazing. Share the recipes below. If you're on YouTube, drop the links. We'd love to see it. And if you are tuning in on one of the podcast platforms, you can watch the video podcast on Spotify. Otherwise, you can hop over to our YouTube channel if you want to check out some of this stuff. So anyway, there you go. They're ranking from highest to lowest out of the Chinook, Coho, and Humpy. You've got Chinook salmon, which are 10 to 12% fat. You've got the Coho salmon, which are 6 to 7% fat. And you've got the pink salmon, which are 3 to 4% fat. And that is why we have a significant difference in both people wanting to keep them and eat them versus a lesser quality fish. So that physiology differences and the fact that they are a planktivorous diet primarily, which is what keeps them pretty small and skinny. Chinook are going to live longer, accumulate more fat, and therefore it makes them a more prized target, both for eating and for fishing. So commercially, when guys catch pink salmon, they are canned or smoked, where Chinook are going to fetch those premium prices and are sold to restaurants, stores, etc., and vacuum sealed accordingly. So now let's jump over to the actual smoking process, and we'll cut to some video of us just smoking. But it starts with brining. So you've got your fillets, we'll fillet them out all nice. And one thing that we like to do is sometimes when you have that fillet and you've got the rib meat and then the bellies, you can save the bellies. It makes great bait, especially for halibut fishing. or you can smoke them and eat them yourself. And so we'll cut the collars out of the salmon, and we will also keep the bellies because it's a lot oilier and fattier pieces of the fish, and they smoke up deliciously in the smoker. So when you're brining or curing salmon, you basically do it in a salt solution. The ratio is typically 2-to-1, two sugar to 1 salt. So for this exact recipe that you're going to see me do, I did 2 cups of brown sugar to 1 cup of salt and mixed it together in a dry brine, and then just rubbed it all over the fillets. And that's pretty much it. It's that simple. You can also add different flavorings, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but salmon is cured in a salt solution. The salt, what it does is it actually drives moisture out and denatures the muscle proteins. So a very strong salt brine, which is very common for fish smoking, like I said, that 2-to-1 ratio, water is going to leave the flesh by osmosis. So the dry brine will have a lower concentration of water than the actual fish, which means it pulls the excess water out of the fish into the dry brine, leaving that fish cured essentially. So it dehydrates and concentrates the meat. It breaks down the muscle proteins, which causes the fibers to relax so they can reabsorb water and the salt more evenly. So that combined effect results in a firmer, preserved flesh. So salmon will typically lose 5 to 10% of its weight in moisture during that curing process. It also deeply seasons and preserves the fish. So as you know, you pull the fish out of the smoker, you take a bite, and it's got that really salty, rich, salmony flavor, and it's freaking delicious. One of the best gifts that you can freeze in the summertime and give to people in the wintertime for Christmas. They will love you forever for it. But yeah, the reason behind all of that was that's a way to preserve fish when the fish are here. So if you think back in the day, when refrigeration was not something that was abundantly available, people would smoke and cure their meats in order to keep them edible for as long as possible during the harsh winters. So the combined effect is a firmer, preserved flesh, and salmon will typically lose 5 to 10% of their actual weight in moisture during the curing. And I think I have a clip of it here, but if I don't, basically what you'll see is I'm putting this dry rub on top of the salmon, both on the top and the bottom side. I throw it in the fridge, it stays in the fridge overnight, just like that. And when you open that container again, all of the brine goes from just dry covering the salmon to this like liquidy slurry of concentrated salt and sugar. And that's because it's pulled all that moisture out of the fish in the curing process. Usually give yourself between 2 to 4 hours minimum to air dry. And what you'll see form is a glossy pellicle, which will form on the surface of the fish. And you can literally see it. It almost has like this shine to it and a tackiness to it. And it's a tacky protein film that seals the flesh in that curing process and helps make the smoke particles actually stick to the fish. This lacquer-like pellicle is vital for that smoke to adhere to the salt brine and also protects the fish from spoilage during the smoking process. So brine concentration, just as some ideas that are going to affect what you do, is the stronger or saltier brine is going to pull out the moisture faster. The thickness of the fish, the thicker the fillets, they just need longer time to be in that brine in order to get to the right consistency. And then the fish fat content. So oilier species like a Chinook is going to absorb the salt more slowly throughout the entire fillet than the lean fish like the pinks. And you can see the difference, even in the ones that I did right next to each other. It's very, very clear that they're different. So another thing you can do in the smoking process, and again, something I'd love for people to chime in on in the comments, is adding different flavors, spices, things to give your smoked fish a little bit of zest, for lack of a better word, just to taste a little bit different beyond salt. So sometimes I just like the straight up brown sugar salt combo, call it good. It's delicious. But it is also kind of fun to add a little bit of different elements to your fish to just pizzazz it up a little bit. And a few options that you can do is like adding brine rub or spices. You can add citrus. You can add different sweetener. I took some, I'll show you. Shout out to this company. Shout out to Maplewood Sweets. You can see I barely have any left. A buddy of mine, Scott Zare, he literally pulls this syrup out of the tree. He taps the maple tree, pulls out the syrup, and then creates there's no more natural of a product. So he can ship to you guys if you're curious about it, but it's called Maplewood Sweets. And they have all sorts of different maple products, but I love this syrup and I like save it. Like this one jar, I'm nursing it for a period of time because I love the way it tastes. It tastes so much better than just the regular syrup that you find at the store. But I just lightly brush that on top of some of our fillets after the curing process is over and after they're dried, right before it goes into the smoker. And it just adds this caramelized richness to the taste, and it's freaking delicious. So anything like that is a really good idea. You can also add honey. Some guys will put bay leaves or garlic, chili, thyme. You can add that into the brine, whether it's a dry brine or a wet brine, just to infuse a little bit more depth to the flavor. But yeah, check this out for sure. But when you add those flavors to a wet brine, as an example, like citrus zest or juices like lemon, lime, or orange juice or fresh herbs, that wet marinade can kind of be used to smother the fish all over before smoking and will infuse its way into the fish. Also, another way to really incorporate some interesting flavors is the smoke itself. So smoke, and I challenge you to experiment with this. We just use a simple Big Chief for smoking. I also have a big green egg. That's fun to do as well with the lump charcoal. There's a lot of different kinds of smokers you can use, but mixing up your different hardwoods in the smoking process can also add a really cool flavor to it. So alder is the traditional flavor that most people use when they're smoking. Salmon, it comes from the commercial smoking process. It gives salmon a light, buttery, sweet smoke that highlights the fish's delicacy. Also, fruit woods can be delicious. Just gives you like a super subtle, fruity smokiness. Applewood is really good. Maple can offer a hint of sweetness and a little bit of earthiness. Some people say it's like a candied bacon flavor. Anything with the word bacon in it, I'm here for. But you can also mix your woods. So like alder and apple, mix that together to create something unique flavor profiles with your smoke. Basically, the options are freaking endless. And if you have the interest or the inclination to give a few of these a try, you're going to have a ton of fun. And it's a blast to do like a smoked salmon tasting day with your friends and family. So you can just have a great time with it. And I would highly recommend it, especially on a pink season. You're gonna have more fish than you can shake a stick at. So go get those fish and prep them for the smoker. So you can just load up your freezer and delight the people in your life that you care about the most. It's a ton of fun. So let's talk one more thing about hot smoking versus cold smoking. Both are very good. I've done both. I typically will hot smoke just because of the convenience of it. With our Big Chief, I mean, you just plug the thing in and you're good to go. And if you're short on time, you can smoke it. Like we actually did this last night. I smoked it for about 4 hours, rotating a pan of chips every 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how quick they burned through. And then I used a temperature gauge to check the internal temp of the fish. And it temped at about 109 for the thickest piece. I wanted to get it up to about 140 just to make sure it was cooked through based on what I knew we were going to do with the serving side of this. So I popped it in the oven at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for an additional hour after we were done smoking. It had that rich, beautiful flavor. I just wanted to make sure those thickest pieces were cooked all the way through, and it turned out absolutely delicious. So that's a way you can actually expedite your smoking process if you don't have 8 to 12 hours and you have some really thick pieces of meat as well. Cold smoking, on the other hand, is you smoke at really low temperatures, like less than 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and you do it for a much longer period of time. So this can be done for many hours or even days. It does not actually cook the fish, which I think is delicious. If you've ever had like sashimi or raw salmon in any capacity, this is like taking it to the next level, where it has the really unique flavor profiles infused with it, but still kind of that raw texture when you eat it. It's so good. Oh my gosh. But it takes a long time, and you got to make sure that you're really diligent about taking care of it. Cold smoking does not cook the fish. It dries and cures it via prior the salt treatment. So the texture remains almost raw. It's like a lox, essentially, because cold smoking doesn't actually kill the pathogens inside the fish. It does require a thorough curing and strict refrigeration after it's complete. So definitely recommend to pop those guys in the freezer when you're done. Make sure you kill any pathogens that could be inside of meat But yeah, it's absolutely delicious and highly recommend it as well. Home smokers kind of blend the methods. As an example, one might brine and cold smoke a fillet using low temperature smoker box or on a grill. Overall, hot smoking is simpler for home cooks. So if you're like me, just do it the hot way. It's easy and it's a little bit safer from a food safety standpoint. But don't shy away from cold smoking because it is really a unique, different way to smoke your fish, and it's freaking delicious. So in summary, smoking is kind of a combination of both a science and an art. Brining uses that salt and sugar process to osmotically remove water and season the fish. Drying from the Pellicle to lock in that smoke. Flavor can then be layered in based on how you use different herbs and spices and choice of wood. So again, it's fun to experiment with, which if you're a fisherman, we like things to be difficult. Like, yes, it's fun to go out there if you know exactly where to go, exactly what to use, and consistently catch fish quickly. Or you could just keep trying new spots, new gear, new ways of trolling and tying things, which is totally the status quo. But smoking and serving your catch is half of the fun as well. So that's one of the beauties of what we do, is the layers of learning never stop. And that curiosity is really why this channel exists. And if you've watched all the way through this, thanks so much for tuning in. We will catch you same time, same place next week. And if you are looking to accelerate your learning and success as an angler, or if you're brand new to the sport, we did create a community of people. We have people inside of that group that are from zero experience fishing to their very first year, all the way up to 50 plus years, and ironically, all over the place too. So it's a really unique place to connect with other anglers, share your fishing reports. We post maps of spots inside of there, trip reports, recipes. We have a full salmon fishing course in there, as well as a full halibut fishing course in there. And by this time in 2026, we will have added 2 shellfish courses as well as lingcod fishing. So hop into that community if you're looking to accelerate your fishing success. You can do that by just emailing me at support@anglersunlimited.co with the subject line "Catch More Fish," and we'll give you the link to hop in as long as doors remain open. So with that, I hope you guys have a beautiful afternoon, and we will catch you at the same time, same place next week on the Fishing for a Reason podcast. Bye, everybody.